The morning after Daniel spoke the sacred vow, the palace buzzed with quiet whispers, servants moved faster, council guards stood straighter, and even the floating garden drones seemed to hum with new energy. The summit was only 1 day away, and the council now believed Lyra's bond was real. But Lyra felt more uneasy than relieved. The lie was working too well. She found Daniel in the training yard practicing slow movements with a practice staff. He wasn't fighting, just moving, breathing, centering himself. She watched from the archway unnoticed. His motions were calm, precise like water shaping stone. For a human, he carried himself like a Valen warrior who had seen peace, not just battle. "You're not supposed to be here," she said finally, stepping forward. He lowered the staff but didn't turn. "Neither are you," she smiled faintly. "True." She walked beside him. "Why do you do that?" "The movements? It's called Tai Chi. My grandfather taught me. He said stillness is the strongest kind of strength." She tilted her head. "That sounds like something a Valen elder would say. Maybe your people and mine aren't so different." They walked in silence for a while, past glowing flower vines and pools that reflected the sky. Lyra had never walked like this with anyone. Not as a princess, not as a ruler, just as herself. It felt strange, but good. "What happens after tomorrow?" Daniel asked quietly. The question hung in the air like mist. Lyra looked down at her hands. "You'll get your payment. A transport will take you back to the Alliance station. From there you can return to Earth. And you?" "I become sovereign. I rule." "I carry on." He stopped walking. "Is that what you want?" She hesitated. "It's what I must do." Must and want aren't always the same. His words struck deep. She wanted to argue, to say duty was enough, but the truth pressed against her ribs. "Sometimes, I wish I could choose something just because it feels right, not because it's expected." Daniel nodded slowly. "I get that. Back home, everyone expected me to join the Corps, to fight, to be the strong one. But all I ever wanted was to fix things, machines, fences, broken things. Not break them." They stood by the edge of a reflecting pool, watching their blurred images ripple in the water. For the first time, Lyra saw them not as alien and human, princess and soldier, but as two people standing at the edge of something neither could name. That afternoon, Lyra took Daniel to the memory chamber, a hidden room deep in the palace where Valen rulers stored their most private moments in light crystals. She activated one and a soft glow filled the room. An image of her mother appeared, young, laughing, holding a child Lyra in her arms. "She died when I was 12, Lyra said. "Not in war, not in sickness. She chose to step down from the throne to protect me from the council's schemes. They called it weakness. I call it love." Daniel watched the image fade. "My mom died in a dust storm. Tried to save our water tanks. She didn't make it." He paused. "I think about her every time I fix something broken. Like I'm keeping her alive that way." Lyra looked at him. Really looked. His eyes held grief but also quiet strength. She realized then that he wasn't just playing a role. He was sharing pieces of himself, freely, without asking for anything in return. That night, the final banquet before the summit began. The great hall glittered with floating lanterns and singing crystals. Nobles in jeweled robes filled the space, their voices sharp with hidden agendas. Lyra sat at the high table, Daniel beside her in formal attire. He wore the silver circlet of a bonded mate on his brow, a symbol he hadn't worn before. "Why the circlet?" she whispered. "Because if they believe it, they'll stop testing us," he replied. "And you'll be free." She wanted to tell him it wasn't that simple. Once the summit ended, the council would expect signs of a lasting bond. Shared quarters, public affection, future plans. The lie would need to stretch longer than a week, but she said nothing. She couldn't bear to ask more of him. During the meal, Elder Vorlon rose. "Princess Lyra," he announced, "the council has one final request before the crowning. You and your mate must walk the Path of Echoes at dawn." A hush fell over the hall. Lyra's stomach dropped. The Path of Echoes was no simple test. It was a mental trial. Two people walked a mirrored corridor that showed their deepest fears and desires. If their hearts were not truly aligned, the path would shatter beneath them and the bond would be declared false. No one had passed it in 3 generations. Daniel turned to her, calm as ever. "What is it?" She explained quickly, her voice low. "It shows your truth. If we're lying, it will know." He didn't flinch. "Then we'll walk it together. You don't understand. If we fail, I lose the throne, and you could be imprisoned for deception. Then we better not fail." His certainty steadied her. She nodded. At dawn, they stood at the entrance of the path, a narrow corridor made of living crystal that pulsed with soft light. The air hummed with ancient energy. Lyra took a deep breath. Daniel offered his hand. She hesitated, then took it. His palm was warm, real. They stepped inside. Immediately, images swirled around them. Lyra saw herself alone on the throne, crown heavy, eyes empty. Daniel saw Earth in ruins, his sister calling his name as dust swallowed her. The path tested their fears, but then it shifted. Lyra saw Daniel standing beside her, not as a pretender, but as a partner. She saw them rebuilding broken systems, not just ruling, but healing. Daniel saw a farm under twin suns. Lyra laughing as she helped plant seeds in red soil. Not Vela, not Earth. Something new. The path glowed brighter. The ground beneath them solidified, turning from fragile glass to smooth stone. They had passed. When they emerged, the council stood waiting. Elder Vorlin's face was unreadable. Then slowly he bowed. One by one, the others followed. The bond was accepted. Back in the palace, hours before the crowning ceremony, Lyra found Daniel packing his bag again. The same quiet routine. The same calm goodbye. "You don't have to leave," she said, her voice softer than she intended. He paused. "The job's done. What if I asked you to stay? Not as my husband. Not as a soldier, just as Daniel." He looked at her, really looked. "Would you be asking as the princess? Or as Lyra?" "As Lyra." He set his bag down. "Then I'll stay. But only if you promise something." "What?" "That you'll keep choosing what feels right, not just what's expected." She smiled, a real one this time. "I promise." Outside, the first light of sovereignty touched the towers of Vela. But inside, something quieter and more powerful had already begun. A bond not built on lies, but on truth, trust, and the courage to be seen. Princess Lyra of the Valen Star Empire stood alone on the highest balcony of the Sky Palace, her silver eyes fixed on the small human ship that had just docked at the outer rim. The wind from the upper atmosphere tugged gently at her long, shimmering hair, which shifted colors like liquid moonlight. Below her, the city of Vela hummed with life, floating gardens, crystal towers, and sky bridges woven from light. But Lyra felt none of its beauty. She only felt the weight of expectation pressing down on her shoulders. In 3 days, the royal summit would begin. The High Council would gather from all 7 Valen worlds to witness her final trial, before she could claim full rule. And the trial was simple yet impossible for her. She had to present a bonded mate. Not a lover, not a friend, but a husband. According to ancient law, a Valen ruler must prove emotional balance through a true bond. Without it, the council would name a regent, and Lyra would lose everything she had fought for since her mother's death. She had no interest in marriage. The noble houses offered sons who saw her as a key to power, not as a person. Their eyes gleamed with ambition, not affection. She refused to be traded like a relic, so she made a secret plan. She would hire someone from outside the empire, someone with no ties to Valan politics, and pay him to pretend to be her husband for just 1 week. Humans were the perfect choice. They were new to the Galactic Alliance, barely known and often underestimated. Their emotions ran deep. Their loyalty could be bought, and they aged quickly, meaning they wouldn't linger in Valan affairs after the act was over. Lyra had watched recordings of human soldiers during the Mars border skirmishes. They were disciplined, quiet, and strangely honorable. She sent a discreet request through the Alliance envoy. 1 human male, military background, fluent in basic galactic standard, willing to accept a short-term diplomatic role. 3 candidates were sent. She chose the last one. His name was Daniel. He was 28 Earth years old, with dark hair, calm eyes, and hands that looked like they'd worked hard all his life. When he stepped onto the palace transport, he didn't gawk at the floating corridors or the light-woven walls. He simply stood straight, gave a small nod, and said, "I'm here to help." Lyra met him in the receiving chamber, dressed in formal robes of deep violet. Her attendants hovered nearby, ready to translate or correct him if he made a mistake. But Daniel didn't need help. He bowed slightly, not too deep, not too shallow, just enough to show respect without submission. "Princess," he said, voice low and even. "You understand the terms?" she asked, keeping her tone cool. "Yes. Pretend to be your husband for 7 days. Attend meetings. Answer questions. Stay quiet otherwise, and in return I get enough credits to rebuild my family's farm back on Earth." She studied him. Most beings trembled in her presence. He didn't. "You won't touch me unless required by ceremony. You won't speak unless spoken to in public. and you will follow my lead at all times. Understood? Something about his calmness unnerved her. She expected fear or eagerness or even greed, but Daniel seemed steady, like a stone in a rushing river. For the first 2 days, everything went exactly as planned. Daniel wore the ceremonial robes she provided, soft silver fabric lined with star thread, and stood beside her during the pre-summit greetings. When Elder Kale asked how they met, Daniel said, "On a peace mission near the Outer Rim," just as she had coached him. When Lady Myron asked about their bond, he replied, "It grew slowly like roots in dry soil." A line Lyra had written for him. He memorized every detail. He never stumbled. He never looked lost. But on the evening of the second day after the last guest had left, Lyra found him in the palace library, reading a data slate about Valon history. He wasn't supposed to be there. The library was private, reserved for the royal line. "You're not allowed in here," she said from the doorway. Daniel looked up, not startled, just aware. "I know, but I wanted to understand why your people care so much about bonds." "It's not just politics, is it?" She stepped inside, arms crossed. "Why does it matter to you?" "Because if I'm going to lie for you, I'd rather understand the truth behind it." His words hit her like a soft blow. No one had ever asked that. Everyone assumed the bond law was just tradition. But it wasn't. It was about trust, about showing you could love without losing yourself. She sat across from him, the glow of the data slate casting soft shadows on her face. A Valon bond isn't just marriage. It's a promise that you'll stand beside someone even when the stars fall. It's rare. Real ones are rarer, so you've never had one? She looked away. No. Silence settled between them, but it wasn't empty. It felt full, like the air before rain. The next morning, Elder Vorlan arrived early, his face sharp with suspicion. During the morning audience, he turned to Daniel and said, "If you are truly bonded to our princess, then speak the words of the first vow." Lyra's blood ran cold. The first vow was sacred. Only true mates knew it. She hadn't taught it to Daniel. No one outside the royal family even knew the full phrase. But Daniel didn't panic. He stood, walked to Lyra's side, and knelt. Not in worship, but in the old way, as equals. Then he spoke, his voice clear and sure. "By light and shadow I choose you. Not for your crown, but for your soul." Lyra's breath stopped. She had whispered those exact words to him the night before. Half asleep, thinking he wouldn't remember. She'd said them as a test, as a joke. But he remembered. The council members exchanged glances. Even Vorlan looked shaken. After the audience, Lyra pulled Daniel into a quiet corridor. "How did you know that phrase?" He met her eyes. "You said it in your sleep last night. You were dreaming. You sounded sad." She didn't know what to say. No one had ever listened to her dreams. That night, instead of returning to his guest quarters, Daniel waited by the garden archway. Lyra found him there, watching the twin moons rise. "You didn't have to do that today," she said. "You looked like you needed someone to believe in you," he replied. "I'm using you. Maybe, but you're also seeing me. Not just a soldier. Not just a human, me." Her chest tightened. She had hired a stranger to play a role. But somewhere between the rehearsals and the quiet moments, something real had begun to grow. And for the first time, Lyra wasn't sure if she was acting anymore. The crowning ceremony began at sunrise. Golden light poured through the crystal dome of the Sky Temple as Lyra walked the long aisle, her robes trailing behind her like liquid starlight. The council stood in silence. The people of Vela watched from the floating galleries above, their faces filled with hope. And at the end of the path, waiting beside the throne of light, was Daniel. He wore no crown, no royal insignia, just a simple silver band on his wrist, the mark of a bonded mate who had passed the path of echoes. He didn't bow. He simply held out his hand. She took it, and together they faced the high priestess. "Do you, Lyra of House Valen, accept the weight of sovereignty?" the priestess asked. "I do," Lyra answered. "And do you, Daniel of Earth, stand with her not by law but by choice?" Daniel looked at Lyra, then back at the priestess. "I do." A soft chime echoed through the temple. The throne ignited with soft blue flame, and the crown of stars formed above Lyra's head, settling gently onto her brow. She was sovereign. And for the first time in centuries, a human stood beside a Valen ruler not as a servant but as an equal. After the ceremony, the palace filled with music and celebration, but Lyra slipped away, needing quiet. She found Daniel on the east balcony, watching the twin suns rise over the cloud sea. "You stayed?" she said. I said I would. She leaned on the railing beside him.
What now?
You can't go back to Earth. Not after this. The Alliance will watch you. Your name is known now, I know, he said. But I don't want to go back to just fixing fences. I want to help build something better. Maybe here, maybe somewhere new. She turned to him. Stay with me. Not as a symbol. Not as a cover. Stay because you want to. He smiled. I already do. In the weeks that followed, life changed. Lyra began ruling not from the high throne, but from the council gardens, listening more than commanding. Daniel worked with the Valen engineers, teaching them human methods of repair and sustainability. He showed them how to recycle old ship parts into farming tools, how to purify water using simple filters. The Valans, used to energy-based solutions, were amazed by his practical wisdom. Meanwhile, rumors spread across the galaxy. A human had stood the path of echoes. A human had earned a place beside a Valan sovereign. Other species took notice. Some were curious. Others were jealous. And a few were angry. One evening, a message arrived from the Krell Dominion, a warlike race that had long envied Valan technology. They demanded Daniel be handed over. A human has no place among true Starborn, the message read. Send him to us or face consequences. Lyra's council urged caution. Let him go, Elder Vorlon said. He is not one of us. His presence risks war. Lyra stood tall. He passed the path. He stood with me when no one else would. If you call him not one of us, then you do not understand what it means to be Valan. That night she found Daniel in the workshop, repairing a broken drone. You heard about the Krell? He nodded. I did. You could leave. I could arrange a safe transport to a neutral world. He set down his tools. And let them think you gave in? That you traded me away to keep peace? That's not the ruler you are. I don't want you hurt. Then let me fight not with weapons but with who I am. Let me show them that strength isn't just in claws or ships. It's in standing by someone you believe in. His words settled deep in her heart. She realized then that he wasn't just staying for her. He was staying for what they could build together. The next day, Lyra sent a reply to the Krell. Daniel of Earth is under Valan protection. Harm him, and you declare war on us all. Silence followed for 3 days. Then a Krell envoy arrived, not with warships but with a single vessel. They came to see for themselves if the rumors were true. Lyra welcomed them to the palace. Instead of a show of force, she invited them to the gardens. Daniel served them tea, human style, simple and warm. He spoke of Earth, of loss, of rebuilding. He didn't boast. He didn't threaten. He just shared. The Krell leader, a scarred warrior named Grail, studied him for a long time. Then he said, You are small, soft, yet you walk the path of echoes. How? Because I wasn't walking it alone, Daniel replied. Grail looked at Lyra. Your bond is real. It is, she said. The Krell left without another word. But before their ship departed, they sent a gift, a seed from their homeworld, said to bloom only in the presence of true unity. Lyra planted it in the heart of the palace garden. Within hours, it sprouted silver leaves and golden flowers. As seasons passed, Daniel's presence became part of Valan life. Children followed him through the halls, asking about earth animals and human songs. Elders sought his advice on conflict resolution. And Lyra, she no longer ruled from fear. She ruled with hope, with partnership, with someone who saw her not as a symbol but as a person. One evening, as they sat beneath the twin moons, Daniel asked, Do you ever miss how things were before? Before you? She smiled. No. Before you, I was pretending to be strong. Now I actually am. He took her hand. Then I guess my job's still not done. What job is that? Helping you remember you're not alone. And in that quiet moment under alien stars, two souls from different worlds knew they had found something rare. Not just a bond, but a home in each other. The galaxy watched, some in wonder, some in doubt. But Lyra and Daniel didn't care. They had already rewritten the rules. Not with force, but with trust, with courage, and with the simple, powerful choice to stand together. Time moved like a slow river on Vela. The truce with the Krell held, fragile but firm. Trade ships began to cross borders that had been closed for generations. Daniel worked with engineers from 3 species to build water purifiers for dry worlds. Lyra opened the royal archives to scholars from the Outer Rim, sharing knowledge once guarded like treasure. The galaxy watched, not with suspicion now, but with cautious hope. But change always brings resistance. Deep in the Valan Council, A group of elders grew uneasy. They called themselves the keepers of the old ways. To them, Lyra's choices, her bond with a human, her open borders, her shared rule, were not progress. They were betrayal. They whispered in shadowed halls, gathered in secret chambers, and plotted not with weapons, but with words. One evening, as Lyra reviewed reports in the sun chamber, a young aide entered with a sealed message. From Elder Torin, the aide said, bowing quickly before leaving. Lyra opened it. The words were polite but cold. Your path strays from Valen truth. The people need tradition, not experiments. She showed it to Daniel later over a simple meal of roasted root vegetables and spiced tea. They're afraid, he said, of what? Of losing control. Of a world they no longer understand. She sighed. I thought showing them a better way would be enough. Sometimes people need to feel safe before they can accept change. The next week, the keepers made their move. During a public assembly, Elder Torin stood and declared that the bond between Lyra and Daniel was never truly tested by time. A week on the path of echoes proves nothing, he said. True bonds last through years, through trials, through sacrifice. If this bond is real, let them prove it, not with words but with a child of both worlds. A murmur rose through the crowd. Valen tradition held that royal heirs must carry the bloodline, but a human and a Valen? It had never been done. Biology alone made it seem impossible. Lyra's face stayed calm, but inside she felt a storm. She looked at Daniel. He met her gaze, steady as always. That night, in the privacy of their shared quarters, she spoke. They want an heir. They think it's impossible. They think it will break us. Daniel sat beside her on the low couch. Is it impossible? Our species are too different. Our cells don't match. Our life cycles don't align. But what if we tried? Not for them. For us. She looked at him surprised. You'd want that? I want a future with you, however it looks. Scientists from both Earth and Vela were brought in quietly. They studied their biology, their genetics, their energy patterns. Weeks passed with no answers. Then one night, Dr. Elin, a Valen bioharmonist, made a discovery. Your bond has changed you, she told them. Not just your hearts, your bodies. Lyra, your cellular resonance has shifted closer to human frequency. Daniel, your neural pathways now echo Valen empathy patterns. It's rare, but not impossible. They could try. The process was long, delicate, filled with uncertainty, but they faced it together. Lyra endured painful harmonization sessions. Daniel gave blood, bone marrow, memories, anything that might help. And in the quiet moments between tests, they talked about names, about hopes, about what kind of world their child would grow up in. Months later, in the heart of spring when the sky flowers bloomed silver, Lyra placed a hand on her stomach and smiled. It's real, she whispered. Daniel knelt, pressing his forehead gently to her belly. Hello, little one, he said softly. News spread fast. Some celebrated. Others doubted. The keepers fell silent, unsure how to fight a miracle. But the real test came not from within, but from beyond. The Krell Dominion sent a new envoy, not Grail, but his younger brother Kor, a hardliner who saw the truce as weakness. He arrived with warships hovering near the border. Your bloodline is tainted, Kor announced in the council hall. A half-human heir will weaken the Valen spirit. Step down or we will cleanse your throne. Lyra stood tall. My child is not a threat. It is a promise. A promise that different beings can create something new, something strong. Kor sneered. Words won't stop our guns. Daniel stepped forward. Then let's talk where words matter. He challenged Kor to the trial of voices, a Krell tradition where two leaders debate before their people, and the crowd decides who speaks truth. It was risky. Krell crowds favored strength, not peace. But Daniel went anyway. On the open plain beneath Vela's twin suns, thousands gathered. Kor spoke first, his voice booming with pride and fear. Pure blood, strong lines. That is how empires rise. Then Daniel spoke. He didn't shout. He told a story about a broken fence on a dead world, about a seed planted in alien soil, about a child who would carry 2 stars in their heart. Strength isn't in being the same, he said. It's in choosing to grow together even when it's hard. When he finished, silence fell. Then one by one, the Krell warriors began to lower their weapons. Even Kor looked shaken. Grail appeared from the crowd. You speak like a true leader, he told Daniel. My brother forgets that courage isn't just in battle. It's in hope. The warships left that night. Back in the palace, Lyra rested her head on Daniel's shoulder. "You did it." "We did it," he corrected. Months later, under a sky full of falling stars, Lyra gave birth to a daughter. She had Lyra's silver eyes and Daniel's quiet strength. They named her Sela, meaning bridge in Old Velan. As Sela slept in her cradle of woven light, Lyra and Daniel stood by the window watching the city glow below. "They wanted to break us," Lyra said softly. "Instead, we built something they couldn't imagine," Daniel replied. And in that moment, they knew. Their story wasn't just about a princess and a soldier. It was about two worlds learning to breathe as one, and their daughter would be the first of many to walk that path. Not as an exception, but as a new beginning. Months passed, and peace settled over Vela like a soft blanket. The gardens bloomed brighter, the sky bridges glowed steadier, and the people spoke of their sovereign with pride, not just for her power, but for her heart. Daniel walked the palace halls not as a guest, but as a known presence. Children waved when they saw him. Engineers asked for his help. Even the old guards nodded in respect. But Lyra noticed something. Daniel grew quieter in the evenings. He spent more time on the west balcony, staring toward the edge of the star system where Earth lay, hidden behind layers of dust and distance. She didn't ask at first. She gave him space as he had given her. One night she joined him. The air was cool, the twin moons low on the horizon. "You miss it," she said softly. He didn't look at her. Not the war, not the ruins, but the smell of rain on dry soil. The sound of my sister's laugh. The way the sun rose over the old barn. "You could visit," she offered. "The Alliance allows travel now. Velan ships are welcome in human space," he shook his head. "It's not the same. I left as a soldier with nothing. I'd return as this, a bonded mate to an alien princess. They wouldn't see me. They'd see a story." Lyra understood. She had felt the same, trapped by titles, by expectations. "What if we go together? Not as ruler and mate, just as Lyra and Daniel." He finally looked at her. "You'd leave the throne." "Not leave. Step away for a while. The council can manage." "They've learned to listen." He smiled faintly. "You've changed, so have you." They made plans in secret. A small Valen scout ship, no markings, just enough for two. They would travel to the outer rim, then take a neutral transport to Mars and from there to Earth. No fanfare, no announcements, just a journey home. The night before they left, Lyra stood in the memory chamber holding a light crystal. She recorded a new message, not for the council but for herself. "I am not just a crown," she whispered. "I am also a woman who chose to trust, and that choice made me stronger." At dawn, they boarded the ship. Daniel piloted. Lyra watched the stars blur into streaks of light as they jumped to warp. For the first time, she felt not like a ruler, but like someone free. Earth was not as Daniel remembered. The dust storms had lessened. Green patches spread across the red plains. Small towns rose from the ruins, powered by solar grids and hope. His sister Mara, now a pilot for the Earth Alliance, met them at the Mars docking bay. She hugged Daniel so hard he laughed, really laughed. And Lyra saw a side of him she'd never known. Light, joyful, whole. Mara looked at Lyra with wide eyes. "You're real." "I am," Lyra said. "He talks about you like you're a dream. And he talks about you like you're his reason to keep going," Lyra replied. They spent days on Earth. Daniel showed Lyra the broken fence he'd tried to fix before leaving. Together they rebuilt it. Lyra learned to plant seeds, to feel soil under her fingers, to watch something grow from nothing. Daniel taught her human songs. Simple, sad, beautiful tunes about love and loss and coming home. One evening, as they sat on the porch of the old farmhouse, Mara asked, "Are you two really married?" Daniel looked at Lyra. "Not by human law. Not by Valen law anymore." "But yes," Lyra nodded. "We chose each other." Again and again, Mara smiled. "That's the only kind that counts." But peace never lasts long in the galaxy. A message reached them on the third week. The Krell Dominion had attacked a neutral trade station. They claimed it was in response to Velan's alliance with lesser species. The council sent word. Lyra was needed. War loomed. Daniel turned to her. "We have to go back." "You don't have to," she said. "You've done enough." "No," he said firmly. "This started because I stood with you. I won't hide while others fight for what we built." They returned to Vela faster than they left. The palace was tense. The council argued. Some wanted to strike first, others to negotiate. Lyra listened, then spoke. "We will not become what we fight," she said. "The Krell fear change. They see unity as weakness, so we show them its strength." She proposed a summit, not in Vela, not in Krell space, but on a dead moon halfway between, and she would go alone with only Daniel at her side. The council protested. "It's suicide." "Or peace," Lyra replied. On the moon's gray surface beneath a sky full of stars, Lyra and Daniel met Grail and his warriors. "No weapons, no guards, just words," Grail sneered. "You bring your pet human again?" Daniel stepped forward. "I'm not her pet. I'm her partner. And if you think unity is weakness, then you've already lost." Grail's eyes narrowed. "Prove it," Lyra spoke. "We offer trade, knowledge, healing, not conquest. Join us or stand alone. But know this. Your fear will not dictate our future." Silence stretched. Then Grail laughed, a rough, honest sound. "You are strange, Vaylon. And you," he pointed at Daniel, "are either very brave or very foolish." "Maybe both," Daniel said. In the end, the Krell agreed to a truce. Not peace yet, but a start. As they left, Grail turned back. "You're human. He walks like a king, though he wears no crown." After they returned, Lyra stood with Daniel on the highest balcony once more. The city below glowed with life. "Do you think it will last?" she asked. "Peace? Maybe not forever. But we'll keep choosing it. Every day," she leaned into him. "I never expected to find home in a human soldier. And I never expected to find courage in an alien princess." They stood together, not as symbols, but as two people who had crossed stars and lies and fear to find something real. And in that moment, the galaxy felt a little less vast, a little more kind. Because sometimes the greatest power isn't in ruling, it's in choosing to stand beside someone and never letting go.